All right, I think. There we go. There we go. All right, we are live. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Gaming Perspective. So, to start this off properly for the MP3 listeners, hello and welcome to the Gaming Perspective, Episode 7. Is this the last of E3 or us? Today we've got a lot to talk about. We've got E3 2020 canceled. Sony confirms Horizon Zero Dawn Horizon Zero Dawn is coming to PC, thus bringing the story of Randall Thor to an exciting conclusion. The Last of Us series is coming to HBO with a little bit of Chernobyl. And we've got Crunch to talk about because why the hell not? This hasn't been talked to death yet. So, let's get right into it. We have an exciting panel this week. We have Mr. English, Mr. Samuel Tolbert from iMore, Android Central, and Windows Central. How are you doing today, sir?
Doing good. In addition to all that, it looks like I'll soon be Nick's official translator. I'm very excited to take this on this responsibility.
It's fine. You'll just be edited out of all the videos translating. It's fine.
Fair enough. All right, yeah, but it's good to be here. It's good to be here. There's a couple of really heated, interesting topics I want to get to.
Yeah, somebody's going to punch someone on this podcast. It's going to be great.
Oh boy.
All right. Also introducing Jared Dean, writer for the lordsofgaming.net.
How's it going, everybody? Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, we got some interesting topics to talk about. There's some been interesting things that happened this past week, and yeah, I think it's just time to get her going.
Absolutely. And joining us from ever sunny Florida, the home of the iguana, the home of the lizard army itself, and also a member of the Basement Radio Arcade podcast, Mr. Eric Jackson.
What's going on? Also known as Eggman by my little girl, which I absolutely love because she's like all about Sonic and stuff now, so that's fantastic.
Sweet.
But yeah, what's going on, guys? Happy to be here as always.
All right, we got
Sunday.
We're,
Nowhere to go.
Due to the whole COVID-19 situation, I'm locked up in my house, not doing anything except getting groceries, which so far hasn't been any different than how I normally live.
There you go. Yeah, I'm quarantined with what else should I say quarantine? But I'm social. What do you call it? Social distance.
Social distancing.
Yeah.
Social distance. Yep. With corned beef, and cabbage, and some homemade fried chicken and cornbread and stuff. So I'm ready.
Little known fact, I've been social quarantining myself for roughly about 26 years. So I've been prepared for this all my life. Yeah, it's been a week. It's been kind of crazy. COVID-19's officially where I live now. There's like 5 cases in the immediate town I live in, and where I work, we've had a couple of cases through distributors and everything else. So it's getting, as the kids would say, it's getting really, really real out here right now. But at the end of the day, we're all in isolation, so that means we have time to play video games or start nonsense arguments on Twitter, whichever we prefer. So, we will dive into what we've been playing. Sam, what have you been playing this week?
A few different things. I've been continuing my work on Gears 5. I'm almost there. I've got like 3 more ranks to go. It's getting crazy at the end of this operation. I'm looking forward to finally having everything from this one. I've been going back through Blind Forest Definitive Edition because I never touched the Definitive Edition of the first game. So I was like, you know what? I want to do this before I actually start Will of the Wisp. I want to be in a good headspace for that, going clean, going fresh. So I've been doing that about 80% through. I'm at the very end, right when you're about to go into the tree.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just wrapping up some collectibles for the Definitive Edition achievements at this point. But I haven't started Will of the Wisp yet. I want to very, very soon. I probably will be able to either tomorrow or Tuesday at my current rate. I'm hearing nothing but great things. And then I've actually been playing the new Battle Royale in Call of Duty Modern Warfare. I played that with Nick, actually, and a couple of other friends earlier today. It was pretty interesting. It's 150 players, which sounds ridiculous, and it kind of is, but it's really, really good. I'll leave that off for Nick because I'm sure he's going to want to talk about that a little bit. But yeah, other than that, I've just been working.
Good stuff.
Some things never change. Jared, what have you been playing this past week?
Oh, well, you guys know me. I always play usually quite a wide variety of things, but I guess I've been tinkering back and forth between quite a few games like Subnautica and Bless Unleashed, and I'm going through my second playthrough of Will-O-Wisp now on hard to get a couple more extra achievements on that game. But yeah, that's about it. Just really still kind of fawning and mooning over Moon Studios and Will-O-Wisp from last week, so
They turned you into a believer, man.
man, it's good. It did. It happened real quick.
Yeah.
I installed the game, so I get high fives, right? Yeah? Installed the game?
Yeah. It get like half-hearted.
Everybody gets credit no matter how late you came to the game. There's no such thing as too late to a game, right? Everybody gets credit.
Absolutely.
Unless you were capping for this game, putting it on your list of console war stuff, and they're like, "Oh, second one's coming out. I should play this now." Then you're
Pretty much, yeah.
And I'm like, that's when I throw the flag. I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
Well,
capping gone wrong. Stop it.
if you ain't Captain America, I don't want to see no capping.
Right.
That was terrible. I apologize. It'll only get worse from here.
Eric, I like that.
Eric, what have you been playing this week?
I have been solely focused on Metro Exodus, and
Nice.
yes. Really digging that game. I'm just at the part, Sam, where you take over the tugboat.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
So that's where I stopped as I jumped into Ori and the Will of Wisp, and some good gaming going on right now. No, thank you, sweetie. I'm good. Daddy already ate.
So
She's coming
Eric,
back with pieces of cornbread for me.
oh, that's awesome. She's trying to give you food. That's great.
Yeah.
Eric, I'm curious because you've played the previous Metro games. What do you think
Yes.
of the more open levels? Because not all of them are open. That's a misconception.
Right.
There are still a couple of linear ones,
Right.
like the one in the mountain, which was interesting, to say the least. But what do you think of the more open levels?
I love how they went for it. I love the fact that they introduced it, but they didn't feel the need to blow the whole thing open, full open world thing. Like, it feels very much still like Metro. It's still very linear in that way of how the Metro games can be. And it's very welcome that they're like, okay, you have this opening, you can go and check out these other things at kind of at your leisure, or continue on with the main campaign portions of it or whatever, right? But it didn't feel forced. It felt like it really fit their flow and pacing of a game, you know? And I love that. I love how they handled that, because where we have so many games that feel that wasn't their DNA, but then decided their next game they just need to blow it open and have you just kind of go wherever you want and open it all up, and then it starts to feel like overwhelming, or you open the map and it's like, oh my god, I gotta go do all this stuff. It makes you.
It's not a checkpoint fest, right? It's not
right,
like a bunch of icons all over the map like a ton of other open world games.
Right, because it's manageable. Exactly, and because it's manageable, you want to go do all of it. You want to go see, okay, what could be over here. So I love that aspect of it, and just hats off to them, man. Like from Last Light to this game, just you see everything that they've kind of learned along the way, but ramped up. And the game is beautiful. Of course, it's not as fleshed out as maybe some other shooters, but it doesn't have to be. It still feels there's something very charming about the Metro games and how they're kind of designed and how they kind of look. It's very like gritty and dirty, but this world feels even more so like lived in. But it's gorgeous, man. Like their character models from the first two games to this one. Like, I don't think they got enough credit
right now.
for that.
Apparently, the government of Ontario is going to be shutting down all businesses inside of pharmacies, grocery stores, and gas stations
being at the
tomorrow.
forefront of tech. When people talk about, oh, the best looking game from XYZ, it's like, you guys realize Metro looked like
I would
this
imagine.
back in
Right.
their 2019 games. Exodus is
$300.
the top 3 or 4.
Give me all the egg noodle.
Oh yeah,
I
Oh, yeah,
can't
hands
disagree with that one at all. That's absolutely true.
absolutely. And again, I love that they attempted to do something different with it, with crafting, and the crafting feels good. It makes sense. Again, it's not overwhelming. It feels welcome. You know, I like the fact that you can craft on the fly as opposed to, some of the older games. Like I like that tension. You still have the tension of running out of ammo and not like it's giving you too much ammo to where you feel like you can just be crazy and just shoot at everything. You still want to be like, careful with how much you use things. And it's still I'm going through the more stealthy approach. I'm trying not to kill anybody if I can avoid it.
Sure.
But
again, except for the mountain. No,
yeah,
there are exceptions.
Yeah, there are definitely exceptions. But I like the little added like RPG type elements. Making sure your weapon is clean, or it could jam on you, and that raises the tension again. And crafting what you need because, like with air filters, and I do love the fact that you're not beholden now to having an air filter on at all times.
Yes, that was a big thing. Like I love the first 2 games, I really do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you didn't stock up on air filters at certain points,
yeah,
you could be screwed. Like that would be it, and you're done for that play.
Yeah, which makes me kind of wonder if they kind of got feedback on that, or if they that's something that they decided, we don't want to really constrict people on this. Maybe that's more of a hindrance than it is an actual fun gameplay mechanic.
I think it paid off because it still feels tense to me. It
still
feels like you can very easily get in over your head.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're not careful,
but no, man, I'm totally enjoying it, man. I'm really, really digging that game.
That's awesome. So, that is awesome to hear.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like I said, between over the next few days here, it'll be that I'll be finishing up and wrapping up on. But yeah, I'm glad that was that's the one I decided to jump into on my next list of backlog games. Going through here, and I think Prey might be up next. I believe I might do that.
Ooh, you're on fire right now. Then that's the case.
Yeah, because I'm trying to. Will of the Wisp is fantastic, but I'm trying to tackle more concise games, like some of the shorter games, I should say, in theory. You know what I'm saying? Because I have like Assassin's Creed, Odyssey, and Origin, and I'm like, ooh.
The
Persona 5,
not the 100-120 hour.
Yeah, exactly. But on to Will of the Wisp, and I'm sure Jared has a lot to say about this too. But man, hats off to Moon, and yeah, there are some issues, and I did have like, a crash earlier. That might have actually had something to do with Xbox Live as well. It might not have just really been on Ori.
I got booted out of when I was playing around the same time you made that post. I think that was Xbox Live.
Right. So, but still, I wanted to give them that feedback and say, hey, I had this happen. Okay, maybe that was it. I am running into a few stutters, so hopefully they're getting all that feedback and and we'll be on that because it is interesting from the Blind Forest to Will of the Wisp. They are having like some of those issues. So whatever's going on there, hopefully they'll be able to hammer that out. But that being said, you run into those issues, it does not at all stop you from wanting to jump back into that game. That game is freaking gorgeous. And I mean, it's a master class. And did Moon do anything before Ori, or is that like their first thing?
In terms of as a studio, it's their first game.
Okay.
Blind Forest was their first game. It was 20 people, all working remote. And then for Will of the Wisp, they staffed up to 8. I think 80 people worked on Will of the Wisp, not counting Xbox publishing.
Okay.
Them working remotely.
But it's insane. Like, it's a master class in platforming. And I don't know if it's just meticulous care or whatever the case it may be, or they cut their teeth on, like the studio people are just really into platform. But it's a master class of melding two things together, which is tight control and platforming and gameplay and graphic.
Yeah. And
it's just a creative feast, like all around, man. It's just, you could spend the first hour just screenshotting.
It's one of those games where you have to force yourself not to take screenshots.
Yeah. I was like, all right, I actually have to play this damn
Absolutely.
thing at some point here. I kind of can't keep screenshotting. And yeah, and it's just insane, man. And with Will of the Wisp, as early as I'm into it, it's definitely things that they learned from the first game, because they don't do like what a lot of platformers do and hold you to a double jump halfway through the game. They're like, nope, we're giving this to you now because maybe there's other things on the way. You're right off. And I love how what the weapons feel. They all kind of fit what they're doing. Like, you're swinging the sword, it's very like katana-like. It's very ninja-like. You're shooting the bow. It has like that arc and tension feel of what you're doing. And just, if you stop for a minute and just watch, because most people probably don't realize it because they're so mesmerized by what's going on in the backgrounds. look at Ori's animations of what this little character's
great,
actually doing.
aren't they?
It's insane, man. Like you're going up a post and you get to the top of it and like she does a handstand, like with one hand acrobatically, and then like flips off, and then it's just like.
And the thing
You
is,
know.
Ori already had good animations in the first game. Like, the animation was already very high attention to detail. Like, if you pulled up on the thumbstick, but you didn't do anything, Ori would still look up.
Right.
So hearing it's that much better. One thing I do remember reading is that Moon Studios said they swapped over from sprites to 3D models for this game.
Yeah, you
And
can
that
definitely
while-
you can see that.
And
Yeah.
that it gave them more detail, but that the catch was it had a bigger impact on performance.
So maybe that's what's going on.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I see that, okay.
Definitely. I'll be honest. I don't expect this one to be ported to the Switch. I'm not. I don't think it's really feasible.
It's pretty demanding from
I
what you
could be
can
wrong.
see,
I
I
could,
think.
I could totally be wrong, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, if that's the case, you know, that they're doing 3D modeling with it, that could definitely be the case then.
Yeah.
But, yeah. But
Glad you're enjoying it, bud.
But yes, so far so good, man. But I expected it because I mean, like I said, the first game is just fantastic, and the fact of how much time they took in delaying and being careful, you know,
They were given
is-
plenty of time for this.
yeah. So I expected nothing. It was just from a graphics and gameplay standpoint, I didn't expect anything less. And the fact now that there's NPCs and you know, and their voice, and they're doing it without any like spoken word as far as you know like languages that we understand. You know, it's the Ori world like gibberish. I'm throwing up quotes.
Sure.
Yeah.
But it all makes sense and it all sounds great, and the characters designs are fantastic. And damn it, we need an art book. I mean, like a full big art book.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah. We
this
did
one
get
again.
one.
Yes, we do.
But yes.
Yeah, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah. And can I say for $50, how gorgeous that collector's edition is?
It's a steal. It's an
Yeah.
absolute steal.
I literally wrote a little thing on Windows Central, which should go out tomorrow, because Jez asked me to write about the collector's edition. Since I got it, it's a very quick post. It's buy it, you lunatic. What do you
Yeah.
do?
It's, again,
You
it
get
goes.
more in that collector's edition at $10 cheaper than you
Yeah.
do in most AAA games that are $60.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That's
Absolutely.
absurd.
I'm looking at it right now too, actually, and it's just
I
beautiful. It's a
literally-
really nice
my
case.
My mom loves the first game. Like
Mhm.
the first game is one of her favorite games of all time, top 3 easily.
Oh,
actually bought-
I wanna know
bought
what
her
your
the collector's
mom's-
edition.
I want to know your mom's opinion on this on Will of the Wisps. I'm actually very curious about her.
I might do that actually. If we ever do an Ori spoiler cast, I might get her opinion.
Yeah,
That'd be fun to
Yeah.
hear, honestly, because she's such a. Because it's nice because your mom isn't that typical kind of gamer. She loves the first one, and knowing how big of a step up, I'm really curious as to how much she'll love it. I know she'll love it. It's just like, yeah, just her personal opinion.
Yeah, and with this second game, you know, I know I gush, you know, about Arcane, and I gush about Ninja Theory. You know, two studios I absolutely love for the games that they've given me. You know, that are some of my favorite games. But Moon is definitely moving in there. Ori, to me, like I know Rand gushes over it too. I'm always in agreement with him. It's not just one of the best Xbox games. It's just one of the best games of the generation. Period.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Blind Forest is already incredible. Like
Yeah.
I said, Blind Forest is already incredible. So hearing that, hearing you, Eric, knowing you, putting Moon's name in Theory and Arcade is like. Bog down this
Yeah, because Nick asked what we were playing, and I was like,
I know. This is the last thing I'll
But-
say. This is the last thing I'm gonna say. I know the Xbox One had a rough generation. There's no denying that. People have talked it to death. Whatever. Move on. But I'll say this.
Mhm.
Good Lord, it gave us Ori, and that was worth it.
Mhm.
Because it has propped Moon up to, like you said, a household name. My understanding right now is that Ori 2 is selling ridiculously well. It's still one of the top 3 best-selling games on Steam. And that's just Steam.
That's fantastic.
So I am super, super happy that this has blossomed into such word-of-mouth success.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's two studios that just came out of this generation, and maybe more, but they're just the two. It's definitely Moon and MDHR.
I would
Like
agree with
this.
that. Yeah, in terms
Yep.
of the smaller ones, in terms
of smaller ones, and in terms of what they've done creatively, you know, and garnering like the accolades that they have, it's like completely well deserved. You know,
absolutely.
so
Yeah, Eric, can I throw one more thing at you? Like, you remember how, like, a while ago I said, Ori and the Blind Forest felt like a prologue comparison to Will-O-Wisp. You
Yeah.
kind of get that feeling as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
thought so. Like it's just
Jeez, that's,
yeah.
that's a strong statement, guys. That's a
Yeah,
strong
yeah.
statement.
Yeah.
it really is, man.
'Cause
Like
if you
I'm
play the
excited
first
for you
game,
to dive in.
everything. Yeah, if you play the first game, everything feels familiar, but it just feels bigger now. It just feels, more
There's
like
more.
And yeah, and that's just me in the beginning. Like, I mean, I've heard people saying at the end, it's just like, whoa.
Oh,
Like I saw Kofi
Oh.
say like that ending. Kofi was like, whoa. So
Yeah, man.
and then the music. I mean, it's just it's all one complete thing. From the first game, even like I said, which where I'm at in this game, I don't expect it to fall off in any way as I go through it. I want to get back to it, and yeah, dude, it's just I would tell anybody play that game and play the first
Yeah.
one. I would say to anybody if they ask me, play the first one first, so you just understand where they're coming from and what they're doing,
yeah.
and where they've been and where they're going. So I think a question was asked, and I'll say this one last thing. I know we want to move on, but would you want another Ori after this one? I don't know how the ending will play out, but then I sort of like yes, and then at the same time I like to see what else they have up their sleeves. It's like,
Yeah, we gotta talk when we all beat the game. We gotta talk afterwards because
Let's save
I
that-
got a lot to
yeah,
say.
yeah. Let's save that conversation for like a spoiler cast when we've all beaten. I think.
I got
let's
I got a
revisit
lot to say.
okay. So Nick, that's
It's
what
a
I'm playing.
good ending.
that. Yeah, Nick.
Sorry, what? We were talking about platformers, so I dozed off.
Oh.
Let go.
Oh.
Don't even. Knock it off.
You want us to play Baldur's Gate? You better watch it, sir.
Sorry. What about trash gates?
Social distancing, dude. Social distancing. Darn, I will fly up there and I will cough in your face if you keep this up.
Man, I'm just that. Social distancing. I'll do some digital distancing.
Right.
I'm just saying.
Nick, what have you been playing?
Not Ori.
Baldur's Gate on Game Pass, right? Yeah.
Making me
That's why I've been
travel
playing.
at this time of year to fly all the way out to Alberta to slap the hell out of you.
Not gonna be like, it'd be totally worth it because we go out for beers afterwards.
True. So I had all intentions of actually playing Ori Will of the Wisps this weekend. It was on my docket for with State of Decay 2 Juggernaut Edition because that got a big update, and that update was whoa. Yeah, if you love State of Decay 2, jump back in. That update is amazing. The game looks a lot better. It controls a lot better. They tweaked the controls. Did a lot of great work. Amazing what they've done to that game for a free update, honestly. Tons of stuff to do in that game now. There's the story DLC. There's a ton of stuff. So I'm probably going to sink another 50 hours into that game over the next couple of weeks. And I had a review code fall into my lap this weekend, so that's been taking up part of my time. I am reviewing a PlayStation Vita game in 2020.
What?
That is the
I
most...
think I know which one that is.
Well, it would not be hard to figure out with how many PlayStation Vita games are coming out in 2020.
It's not like what it was. Right.
So I'll be able to talk about that in about just over a week. So not next episode, but the episode after, I'll be able to talk a little bit about what I've been playing. In terms of that, I do plan on starting Ori this week, though. And especially starting it this week if work gets canceled. But I've also been going through Doom 2016, and let me just say, it's hard to play a video game at half-mast for about 3 hours straight. Because that game is so good mechanically. And just so fluid, and it's just so good. I want to write an article that Doom 2016 is one of the best Metroidvanias ever, but I get absolutely butchered for it.
I kind of disagree. I see where you're coming from.
I'm going to save it for Eternal, because they seem to be doubling down on a lot of that stuff. So I want to be able to say Doom Eternal is the best Metroidvania, and then really watch the tears roll in.
You could just say it's a demon version of Metroid Prime. There you go, buddy.
What's Metroid Prime? I've never played that garbage.
What is that? I never played
My-
the garbage.
I don't play none of those Nintendo Kitty games. Screamed every 20-something-year-old on the friggin' internet. Yeah, no. It's really cool to see Ori and Will of the Wisps go through. I don't troll, but I monitor the Steam charts for patterns and everything else as part of what I do at lordsofgaming.net. And Ori and the Will of the Wisps actually peaked on Steam with 31,000 players concurrently. That's not copies. That's playing at the same time.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, for context, The Witcher 3 only just hit 100,000 after the TV show and a wild sale.
Wow.
For context, that's a pretty high number.
Yeah, absolutely.
actually, hold on. For context, let me... Steam chart. No, not... So, to give you an idea, when Battlefield 5 launched, it only hit about 50,000 players concurrently.
Wow.
So, it's doing as good as Battlefield is, which I don't think that was the reference I was trying to make. Never mind. That's more detrimental to Battlefield than it is a boost to Ori's. Whoops! I had an oopsie.
Wait, why you gotta do my bro Battlefield like that?
Because
why
they
you
haven't
doing like
haven't made a good game since Battlefield 4.
that? I know. I know.
In the
Oh,
mortal words
man.
of my wife, it's sad, but it's true.
Yeah.
So we got some pretty exciting news. We got a ton of PlayStation news this week because PlayStation doesn't believe in giving people information once every couple of weeks. They just wait like 3 months to give you like a barrel load of information all at once. So the first thing that came out that was kind of cool, I'm not sure in terms of timeline whether this came out first, but this was the first thing I saw in my news feed that day, was the Last of Us series is in the works at HBO and it's being headed up by Chernobyl creator Craig Mazin, and Neil Druckmann is actually will be working on this as well. As if that man had more free time than he already has. So apparently HBO is going to be making a Last of Us TV series. It's apparently going to frame the timeline of the 2013 game, as well as part of The Last of Us Part 2, but we don't know exactly what that will mean because we haven't played The Last of Us Part 2 yet. So, what do you guys think about this in terms of who's doing it, and what do you think about a Last of Us TV show?
Well, it's exciting.
Okay.
It's go for it, Eric.
I'll say it like this. I'll say, depends on what they want to necessarily like do with it. I don't really want the adventures of Joel and Ellie. If they're gonna do this, I'd rather kind of see them go with other happenings around this world. You know, another group maybe, and maybe you hear of Joel and Ellie, like mentioned, or something to that effect, or something going on with that. But you know, the promising thing is that they're not trying to force a movie. Hello, Uncharted. I think a television show lends itself much better to this kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I have not seen Chernobyl, but I've heard nothing but great things. So,
Dude, it's incredible.
that's what I hear. So you can't go wrong there, right? So the guy involved with, I don't know his name. You can help me with that. So that's
Craig
a good.
Mazin.
Craig Mazin.
Craig Mazin.
Craig Mazin. Okay, so you have Craig Mazin and you have Neil Druckmann. I mean, this is the first thing Last of Us themed that Neil Druckmann is actually, you know, co-signing, because I think there have been a few things out there. He's like, hey, we have nothing to do with that. You know, so
Yeah, there's been a long, like, nasty history. Neil has not been shy about the fact he didn't approve of the movie, or the
Right.
plan Sony Pictures had. So, again, I mean, like you said, Eric, TV show just seems to be working better. It worked
Yeah.
for Castlevania. It worked for Witcher. It should work better here.
Yeah, it worked for Watchmen. Things like,
Absolutely.
those types of things, they lend themselves better to being able to be fleshed out, especially if you're doing something that's around a game, because games are hours of experience versus a few hours like a movie,
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
unless you're going to do a cinematic universe like Marvel, it's, you kind of need that time to flesh some things out. So what do you guys think?
Do you guys mind if I go first?
Go.
Next.
Go for it. Yeah.
Here's the thing. I've got a very complicated feeling because at first, my first thought was something you brought up, Eric. Like, okay, show us something else in the world. But they've already confirmed it's Joel and Ellie's story.
Oh, it's true. You're right.
So I'm kind of like, okay, here's what I think. On the positive side, like you said, Craig Mazin. After seeing Chernobyl, I'm dead serious, Eric. I will walk in onto like whatever, a TV show, a movie, simply because that man is involved.
Right.
Chernobyl was incredible.
Yeah, it
That
was.
said,
It's.
I'm going to watch it as we're home. So
Yeah,
I'm
exactly.
going to check it out.
Good timing. Good timing.
Okay.
You got to make me when you see the final episode.
Okay. Definitely. will.
It has
It's
one of the greatest
good.
speeches, I would say, of all TV history, and Jared knows what I'm
Mhm.
referring to. But
Oh yeah.
the other thing is that I'm kind of concerned about is, how do I put this? I do not envy the casting process for this shit, because getting Joel and then especially Ellie right, like oof, like these are revered characters we're talking about. Because let's be honest, guys, the story of The Last of Us isn't really special. It's the characters and the art direction. It's not the fact that there's an infection story or anything like that. It's the fact that, seeing those abandoned skyscrapers being taken over by greenery in Boston for the first time, hearing the clickers for the first time, Joel and Ellie's standoff in the farmhouse after she runs away on horseback, just the tension, the character building. It's hearing Ellie talk about something behind you and then turning around and realizing, oh, I can engage in a conversation with her. It's all about the character and the art direction, and I do not envy them trying to get that right. Because there are 10,000 ways it can go wrong. I think you can flesh it out a bit. I think you even have to flesh it out a bit more. Like, they're not going to have Ellie, they're not going to have the player sneaking around for 2 hours doing nothing but stealth. They're not going to have us, wasting 3 hours doing crafting scenes like we may have in the game. It's not going to work like that. But they have to balance that tension with showing more. Maybe we see a little bit more of what the Fireflies are up to, or what life under the quarantine is like. I don't know. I'm very cautiously interested. Is the way I'll put it. That's what I'll say about it.
I see, when they announced it, I was like, this is gonna be really cool, because this is a really cool universe that exists outside of these main characters, and it'd be really cool to explore that world more. And there's even gaps in Joel's story between what you would call the beginning of the game and further into the game, so to speak. And there's a lot of time frames that they could explore, and it just seems safe to me to just follow the storyline of the game. I don't know, it could be amazing. Like I said, everyone involved in it is super creative. Like Sam said, I don't envy casting. I don't think HBO you couldn't ask for a better partner for a Last of Us TV series, honestly. But I don't know how I feel about it in terms of, is the game is already so good and is already, people are going to crucify me for this, but it's cinematic enough on its own. I don't need an adaptation of it. I just think it'll all end all and be all be how well they do it at the end of the day, because it could be amazing. It could get a ton of people into The Last of Us or into video games. And like we saw with what the Witcher Netflix series did for that franchise, this could very well do the same thing if it's done right.
True.
And and them, like, as the hardcore audience who have played through The Last of Us once, numerous times for some of us, we may sit there and go, oh, they're retelling this story again. But if someone watches that without experiencing The Last of Us' story prior and just watches it as a television show, that would be engaging television. And that's just the way it looks to me. Like, I would have liked them to take more risks with stepping outside of Joel and Ellie. Even doing Joel, like, at the midpoint, like 10 years after his daughter died. Or something like that. Or do some of the backstories that you always hear about the characters talking about. Like, how did Joel meet this person? How did this relationship build?
I think they have to be careful with that, though. You can't show too much. Because in my opinion, you guys are free to disagree with me here, if you don't mind me jumping in, Nick. I think a great part of Joel's character is that he goes in that 20 years from being this loving father figure to, oh, this guy's got some dark spots in his history I didn't know about. As he says, he's been on the other side of traps and things like that. And seeing that unfold and realizing he's not exactly a nice guy is one of the more fulfilling parts of the story. So you see what I'm saying? Like, I'm not saying you can't do flashbacks with him. I'm just saying it would have to be done in a very careful fashion.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with that one.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that either. I just think that if they just rehash the game story but into a TV series, that won't be as exciting as it could be. I think it'll be a missed opportunity. But as Eric said, at least thank God it's not a movie, because by the time they get this Uncharted movie out, Tom Holland will be old enough to play Sully.
I've said it before, man. I'm like, I don't know how many signs that they need to see that the universe is telling them don't do this, but they're gonna push for it anyway. I'll be surprised if anything good comes out of that Uncharted.
You know what the worst part of this is?
Yeah.
This Uncharted movie got announced years ago, and we're gonna get another Indiana Jones before this Uncharted movie comes out. With Harrison Ford, 96 years old, with a walker.
Right. Lord.
Going da na 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 na. But yeah, we'll just have to wait and see. It's an interesting announcement. It's good to see them starting to realize that it doesn't have to be a movie, because trying to cram a 20-hour game into a 1.5-hour movie is terrible. And if you want the worst example of something that's really big getting crammed into one movie, go watch the movie called Aragon and read the book first. And then be absolutely
don't
petrified.
get me started. Don't get me. I was the biggest fan of those books. I read all 3 of them. I was and that movie. Oh, don't. That's yeah. Why'd you have to bring that up? That's bad memories, man.
Because when I was 13 years old, that was the biggest disappointment in cinema I ever saw.
That was the biggest disappointment ever. Bigger than Anthem. Like, damn.
Okay, it's not that bad.
No, it was that bad. Come on.
But we gotta move on, and the next topic is a redemption arc for some people. So we saw several rumors over the past few months that Horizon Zero Dawn was coming to PC. And some people that said these rumors, such as Rand, Jason Schreier, and everything else, the more aggressive people of the community said, "That'll never happen. You guys are lying for clout. This would never happen. Sony loves us so much." Well, Herman Hulst, who has now been coined in the more toxic circles of the video game industry as Phil Spencer 2.0, which I find it absolutely hilarious and a compliment to what Herman's doing already. Herman Hulst, in an interview with PlayStation Blog, announced that officially this summer Horizon Zero Dawn will be coming to PC. And the key part of this story that people are not reading or choosing to ignore is that he stated that this does not change how they view their software versus hardware, and that there will continue to be great PlayStation exclusive software going forward. So, what do you guys think of coming to Horizon Zero Dawn coming to PC? And I will be the first person to say I didn't care about it when it was a PlayStation 4 game. I don't care about it now.
I think it's just on fire tonight.
I know, just all kinds of slander.
I mean, the thing is, I'll get this out of the way real quick. Obviously, it was going to happen, you dinguses. It's obviously going to happen. Sony is going to realize that, oh, these Steam sales are pretty sweet. And they're going to put games on PC. And you're going to find out that it's actually a good thing for your platform. So calm down, please.
Yeah. Jerry, you want to go? man.
Oh man, there's never. Well, let's be real here. There really isn't a lot to say. There's just plain logic. It's a good thing. The money that comes from those sales is going to be fed back into the company. That's going to be fed back down to the studios and the product and the merchandising and whatever else. You're set. Relax. It's a game. The world isn't ending. Kinda is, but isn't in this regard. Chill. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah, if I could, I want to kind of piggyback. Shout out to Jez there, but I think Jez said this the other day on Xbox too. He said the majority of gamers, like who are not really involved in this little weird world of social media, gaming, Twitter, or whatever the case may be, don't even know that that's happening, or care.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
even care about Horizon Zero Dawn, probably, because if they did, they would already have it. If they found it interesting, they would have bought it already, right? If not, it's like, I don't care about that game. I don't care where it goes, right?
Yep.
So it's sort of the
Absolutely.
same thing. You can't move me off this hill of being convinced that the meltdowns that you saw had nothing to do with the game. I would argue some probably didn't even play the game. Some probably didn't even like the game. What has happened is a shift into energy. Throwing up quotes again because I hate that term. You guys know that.
Yeah.
And I can no longer, throw this around or throw this weight around. The ammunition that I had and having console wars, whatever the case may be, I can no longer do that. And that's what you're taking from me because that's all I live for. That's what I take from it.
No, absolutely.
Mhm.
That's absolutely what it is. It's this stubborn insistence. You know what it is, Eric? You know exactly what it is? It's like when you're trying to help a young kid open their fruit gummy pouch that they can't open and they start screaming at you because they think you're taking it away from them. It's like, no, I'm trying
Right.
to help you, dummy. Just let
Right.
me help you. They've gotten the people who are upset by this have gotten so caught up in the idea that mine is platform exclusive to the hardware that I swore myself to, and they don't understand that it's a good thing and it doesn't affect them at all in any
Right.
way, shape, or form. It takes nothing away from them, and it allows more people to play a game, which, spoiler alert, as you know, Ori and the Will of the Wisp is on Steam. It's a bestseller. How much money would Microsoft and Moon Studios be missing out on if it wasn't on
Mhm.
Steam?
Mm-hmm.
Think about that. It's going to be the same thing here. Like,
Right.
oh, a lot of people like playing these games with better hardware, with ultra wide monitors, or better frame rates. Cool, we'll port some more over.
Right. And where I kind of stand on it is as far as how much I want to burn brain power over these kinds of things.
Sure.
I'll always stand by the premise that in a platform scenario, like an exclusive game is what is the attractor. It's like the honey,
Sure.
to the bee, right? We see it with Netflix, we see it with Apple, we see it with everybody. That you want to. There's so many things going on. You want to have something that makes you stand out, right?
Sure.
But if you're going to go deeper and dive deeper into it to the point where you're like, I don't want this to leave this particular piece of hardware, then that's when I start to question like the motive, right?
Mhm.
Because I look at it like this. I know it went from being, and this is, some of the Xbox guys have some fault in this too, because it went from the conversation just being to the fact that this older game is now being moved over to PC, which makes complete sense. It's not going anywhere. It's not moving anywhere anymore. And everyone who want that game got it. It's dirt cheap now.
You can get
So
the
now you-
complete edition for $5.
Right. So now you're breathing more energy into it. And guess what, guys? I know some of these dudes may not agree with this, but the fact of the matter is, game development this generation wasn't cheaper. It ain't going to be any cheaper next generation, right? And we're not going to we're not going to
Mhm.
pocket watch. But the fact of the matter is, these are moves that kind of have to happen, or brands will die.
Do you want Guerrilla Games to make a bigger, better Horizon Zero Dawn 2?
It's got to come from
sorry.
somewhere. So
Like,
either your
Yeah.
game price,
Game
either your
development
games
is
go up.
more expensive than ever. It's
Right.
AAA costs are only climbing up. Like a
Right.
total of, I don't know if you guys know this, it wasn't just Guerrilla Games, because external, you have to outsource assets to art studios, art houses, and things like that. Almost 500 people worked on Horizon Zero Dawn to make it in time.
Mm-hmm.
And to be fair, that was done to alleviate crunch. That was done to do it in a reasonable amount of time. But still, point is, that's a lot of mouths to feed. That's a lot of people who need a paycheck. The game was absolutely a success on PS4. No one is denying that. No one's taking that away from it. But can you blame them for saying, okay, things are a little more dicey right now. Let's get a little extra padding into that. It's not
Right.
that big a deal. It makes
It really
sense.
isn't. And what I was, alluding to with, like, like with some of the Xbox guys or whatever, it's like, they're going into the whole, we're talking the day and date thing, and it's like, that may happen, and when we'll get there when we get there. But again, this is more about the fact that here's a game that will work on PC because it's a type of game that will attract a PC gamer, right? So it makes sense to put it there because you're just adding to the revenue. You guys understand? It's like if you want more PlayStation, this is a way to fund that. Or your game prices have to go up, which people will bitch about. I don't see that really necessarily happening because I know a lot. A lot of the future type thing is looking into the whole subscription models and the case may be. But but I'm also like the kind of believer in, because one kind of has like their formula what they're doing, it doesn't mean that the other one is the same exact thing, right?
No.
But just wait and see kind of what happens. I mean, what is really the big deal about this one game? I know people are saying, well, that means eventually all of them will.
Okay.
The needle point was definitely, will it all be day and date? Because that's sort of, there you go again with the energy key.
Well, okay, but
It's like burn the whole social media thing down, man.
even if it does, worst case
Right.
scenario, even if it does, you'll be okay.
Well, yeah, I mean, end of the day, yeah,
Worst case scenario, it's going to be perfectly all right.
unless your life is on social media going back and forth all day, which to me, you're not really playing games anyway. I don't know how to have time to play games and do that all day anyway.
Yeah.
You really, it doesn't make sense.
Well, see, the thing is, and why this is such a big deal for the people in the social media sphere, is you gotta remember, for a lot of people in the gaming, Twitter, social media scape, are content creators. So if you spend 4 years or 5 years championing this specific feature, and let's face it, exclusivity has had its champions on both sides of the fence, whether it's Nintendo, PlayStation, Xbox, wherever the case may be. At some point, their audience has championed exclusives as a big deal. And if you spend 4 years putting all your value and making videos upon videos upon videos of valuing exclusivity, and then all of a sudden that exclusivity is gone, you've wasted 4 years of your content creation life. I think a lot of guys are just realizing that their content's going to dry up because nobody's going to care soon. Like, the thing is like, so many people are invested into brands, and I get it. I get liking a brand. I understand that. You're talking to the biggest id Software nerd ever. I will forever stand Doom until the end of time. But the thing is like, there's a very distinct difference between loving something because it brings you joy and it brings you happiness, to loving something so you can be detrimental or toxic to someone else. Like, all you have to do is look at, like, the idiot that trashed his desk setup to try to prove a point. The guy who wants to shoot up Sony SIE and was threatening to cave people's heads in with the hammers that were laughing at him. You have the guy who's live streaming who was crying on his copy of Horizon Zero Dawn. Some of these guys could just be trolling, but there is some emotional investment at some point that makes me wonder if there's something seriously wrong with people. And the thing is at the end of the day, more people are going to get to play a very remotely average open world game. And that's awesome. And
I like your low level of shade there, Nick.
Look, like I said, I'm not going to pretend to care about Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm not going to pretend to care about it because it's coming to PC. It can come to PC. I'm still never probably going to finish it. It's just the way it is. But I don't see a problem with it, because even back in 2015, 2014, I was one of those people, like, when they were like, Quantum Break's going to PC day and date, I said, okay, cool. Still buying it on Xbox because I don't have a PC. I have a PC and I still buy 98% of my games on console. It's just...
And that's the thing. We've been here before. This isn't, like, new.
No, it's like, well, I just don't care.
Things change, they stay the same.
Came from a PC, like, I didn't start in the console market. That's why this whole, like, battle cry mentality is weird to me, because, like, I started in PC, so, like, I just played games, and if I wanted to play Mario, I just bought a Nintendo console. I bought a Xbox because I played Halo. Like I never valued a platform for exclusivity. It wasn't until I joined social media that I realized that's a big point for a lot of people. Me and my friends used to just be like, "Oh, I want to play that new Killzone. Oh man, that means we need to buy a PS3. All right, man, let's go buy a PS3." There was never any, "Oh, we bought Killzone. We're better than everyone else. Hell yeah!"
I was blissfully ignorant. Like, I was still alive from the Matrix. Ignorance is bliss. Plug me back in because 2013, moving into 2014, like I didn't really know like this kind of thing was going on. I always knew about forums and chat rooms and stuff like that. People could be toxic in there, but that was you really had to search that out, right? So yeah, I didn't really understand this. Even in my first couple years on Twitter, I was mostly just like gaming news and keeping up with what was going on and just excited for, what was going on with, PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and what they were bringing and all that stuff. So yeah, this whole thing, that was all new to me.
Yeah, it's almost like you're a well-adjusted adult.
Yeah, I missed a lot of the vicious console war stuff. Like I kind of came in after a lot of that.
Lucky you. I joined Twitter in 2015 because Ivan told me, he's like, "Hey, you should join Twitter. It's a lot of fun." And I regret everything.
Yeah,
I don't
lucky
regret
started
everything.
using it a few years ago.
I've met a lot of great people over the years, but holy hell. Some people need to be permanently relocated to the bushes.
Yeah. Yeah, 'cause for me, it was like somebody introduced me, like a friend of mine who's like, he's a quote unquote, like, I never really cared for the term Xbox guy, PlayStation guy. Like, just, you're a fan of whatever, kind of go with that. Like, you identify as this. That's always been kind of odd to me. But if I had to give him a label, he's definitely like Xbox. So he introduced me to this fun podcast back at the time, like BGST. He's like, "You should listen, man, because they cover the news and they do it from like, topics of this and that." And I'm like, check it out. And I was listening. I was like, what the hell is this? What is going on? But actually, truth be told, when it first started, it was a lot more. They were kind of covering some things, and it turned into. And I was like, whoa, that's how I started meeting other people. And the only reason I'm still around is because of the cool people that I've met. It wasn't because of those things. I mean, there've been plenty of times I was like, I got to get the hell out of this, But those things can jade you after a while. They can really, if you allow it, definitely start taking an effect on you. Like you can start to see, kind of hold things against certain things because of how somebody who prefers something treats you or says something to you. Mm-hmm. That can start to skew your perspective, and you really have to start pulling back from that and kind of blocking from it, and start to remember what you really, more of your ignorant time when those things didn't really affect you as much.
Yeah, just enjoy the games, enjoy them where you play them. I'm really interested to see, like, Horizon Zero Dawn was probably one of the most visually enticing PlayStation 4 games up until God of War, and some people still say it doesn't look, it looks better than God of War, but you can be wrong, it's fine. It'll be really interesting to see what the PC port looks like, and what it's going to look like with, like, ray tracing and everything else. It's going to be cool. That's all I see from it. So, moving right along to the good old ESA. So, against all odds, the ESA actually canceled E3. Despite all of the signs, I really thought, honestly, they were going to try and go through with it. Like, I figured they'd be there with hazmat suits being like, "Who's ready for your activations?"
Activation T-shirt.
But the ESA announced that due to the COVID-19 virus, they would be switching to an all-digital format for their E3 conference. Microsoft has already announced they will be doing a digital stream as well of all the content they were going to show, and a lot of the other companies have done the same. So E3 has changed, and it's all digital, and COVID-19 is really taking a toll on the industry as a whole. But it's really crazy to me is, like, this is the first time E3's ever been canceled, and it's on the year of new hardware. So, what do you guys think?
Crazy.
Yep.
I never, ever in 100 years would have thought E3 would have canceled for what is being canceled. That equation never entered my mind.
No, none of us ever considered.
No.
None of us.
No. Not surprised that it ended up going that route. I think a lot of us last show kind of guessed it would be a little bit later than when they did it.
Yeah,
Like if we didn't hear
were
by
saying,
April.
I think April. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but it kind of made sense again, like from what we had talked about. Like, companies have to have a lot of time to logistically plan for what they're going to do. And you have to move on it. But what do you guys think? Just if I can put on my tinfoil hat, I've heard some people kind of throw out there like the ESA again kind of use the excuse of it because they necessarily didn't want to do it. And I'm kind of that doesn't make any sense to me because there's a lot of money and jobs.
No,
No.
not at all. Not even remotely.
Yeah.
Los Angeles depends on that tourist traffic during that
Mhm.
period. Do you realize how much money goes into those big, expensive billboards and the
Oh, yeah.
marketing for games around that time, like the big banners and stuff? Like they depend on the extra people, the thousands of people, near tens of thousands actually, tens of thousands coming in, buying more food from vendors, paying for hotels, things like that. That's a big loss of revenue for the city. And then, it's a loss of revenue for the ESA because the E3 is the ESA's bread and butter. It's what they depend on. That is their lifeblood. And joke about activations all you want. I'm joking about activations still, even though I won't get to see them, which disappoints me. But the reality is, I'm not sure what the ESA looks like after this. They did not want to do this. They had no choice. They had no choice. It would have been irresponsible. As much as I love E3. And I told you guys on the last show we were on, I think, that I love E3. I've explained why I do. I have a very unique perspective on it. But at the end of the day, this was the right call. It sucks, but put your tinfoil hats away on this one, guys. The ESA did not want to do this.
Yeah, I have to agree on that one. Like, it was really only a matter of time before the situation was going to get worse, and even if they still wanted to put it on, I think they would have been forced to have canceled it in the first place because of the current restrictions now going on with the virus going around. So it's like, I think either way, it would have been only a matter of time before it would have been canceled. And it sucks. Like, it sucks that people don't get the opportunity to go there and experience this kind of it's not really a conference, but it's just really unique event for fans and developers and companies to go together and have the joy of gaming be shared with everyone. And it's not platform dependent, and it's just a nice thing to go to for people. Having that being canceled, it could really have not good repercussions, but repercussions in the industry in general for future business relationships and maybe small indie developers trying to get their foot in the door with some places, and now they might not get that opportunity. It was really bad when GDC got canceled, but now E3 is canceled, so that's two big events for small developers to try and get their game out. Now they don't have that chance, so this could have quite severe repercussions in the future for other game developers and for things that we won't see. It'll happen to other people, but for gamers, we won't see what the effects of this E3 cancellation will be. But yeah, it's not really a good thing. It sucks, but yeah.
Yeah. Well put, Garrett.
Yeah, no, it's good, like, and that's a big thing too. Is Jared touched on my key disappointment in it as well. Like, there was a lot of reasons I was excited personally for E3, but one of the big things that's disappointing is, like, without GDC, without E3, this is an opportunity that for some smaller developers to be seen on a big stage. Like, it's fine for Microsoft and Sony because if they drop an event, every site covers every little bit of what they drop. But if a studio goes, hey, we're on Twitch showing off our new game, it's hard for them to draw people unless people are looking for that game. Whereas E3, they strike a deal with Microsoft, they strike a deal with Sony, or they get some of these deals going, and they get shown off on the E3 stage, and all of a sudden their games have mindshare, and people are looking for those games, and they're searching for their social networks, so they're paying attention to the developer streams. It's a great way of games getting word of mouth because not every game gets treated the same. And
yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but like, people don't understand the number of deals that go on the show floor in order to make these games happen. It happens way more than you think.
Yeah, people
Exactly.
People get their funding like right then and there, or get picked up to by a publisher and stuff.
Yeah, you don't sell a game by giving someone a presentation in a boardroom. You get them by playing it and by getting that hands-on impression of being there with the crowd, with the rest of the gamers. It's an exciting moment, an exciting atmosphere. So it's the best selling opportunity for these developers. And not just that. Yesterday on Next Podcast, I was actually talking with Cognito, and he brought up a really good point where even media, it's going to really impact the gaming media itself as well, because there's smaller sites like Lords of Gaming, where they go out and they try to hit the floor and they try to get all these interviews, and it helps them as well, because getting those smaller interviews with indie developers or whatever other developers that they can, it brings in good traffic for that site. Now they won't get that opportunity. Plus, this is also a big thing for also the big publishers, because now they have to rely on last minute information for these giant digital events that are going to have to take place in replacement of these actual events. So it's really going to be interesting how things are going to shape out.
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of the hardest thing is like a lot of people I know in the industry got into it through E3, other events, and being on the show floor, because the show floor you can get media access, you can talk to these developers, and sometimes all you need is the foot in the door to build these relationships, to get these contacts. And like, yeah,
it's huge.
And like for larger sites and whatnot, obviously they get flown out to events. They're on developers' maps. You know, as Sam can attest, you know, he's been to events for Windows Central and other sites before, and those are very exclusive media events that a lot of small sites won't be able to get into. That's not necessarily saying that the large sites don't do a great job of covering the stuff that's covered, because they do a fantastic job, but it's much harder for a smaller site or even just a freelancer who's trying to cut his teeth to get in the door, so to speak. And that's
absolutely,
yeah.
And that in itself is sad. It's sad because like this was gonna be my big first E3, and like I've got a small. I'm very blessed to have the developers I know that I talk to that provide codes and everything else, or that just DM me directly. But it's always about wanting to stretch out more and meet more people and everything else. And with the cancellation of these events, like I understand the reason why it's canceled. It's a very good reason for it to be canceled. But it doesn't change the fact that it changes the landscape of what my 2020 was going to look like. And it took me a solid week. I was depressed about this pretty hard for a solid week about this. And then I just went, other opportunities will come. We never know what next year might hold and everything else. But it's certainly a sad day because for a lot of people, you know, E3's kind of been like the Super Bowl for nerds. Like I can remember like back in the like 360 PS3 era, like me and a couple of my friends that were like into games and coding and all that nerdy stuff that you get bullied at school for would sit around and watch E3 and, you know, eat snacks and like, oh, what's Sony going to bring this year? What's Xbox going to bring this year? Oh, what's this Ouya thing? Like, there's been so many memorable moments. The PlayStation 3 reveal, the VCR Xbox One reveal. There's tons of great moments, tons of sad moments. There's the Grand Theft Auto tattoo. E3 was awesome. And I don't care. All these dudes that are saying, we don't need E3, shut the fuck up. Just shut the fuck up forever. The media that's like, oh, we were kind of sick of doing E3 for 20 years. I can get that. I respect that. But all these guys that all of a sudden stopped caring about E3 when Sony stopped showing up to E3, shut the fuck up. That's all I want to say. Because everyone that's celebrating E3 going away is the weirdest energy I've ever seen in my life. Because as a consumer, it's exciting. I can understand why media don't like it. I even understand why game studios don't like it, having to crunch and work their tails off to get trailers and everything else ready. I can understand that. But as a consumer, to sit there and go, yeah, I never liked learning about like 50 plus games in a week and seeing a bunch of cool footage. Shut up.
Man. The social media symptom.
I'm just so sick of it. Like, you are a 100% fraud in my heart if you say E3 doesn't matter and I look on your channel and you've got an E3 reaction show to every live stream for the past 5 years. It's irrelevant. It's dated. You still covered it, though. And you know what? The ESA deserves all of this. The ESA deserves everything back tenfold on them for how they treated journalists last year, how they coasted over that, how they were like, well, if journalists don't want to show up, we'll just get famous people to show up and show off games. What? Yeah, because I want to see LeBron James playing Metro Exodus. I mean, it'd probably be pretty cool, but you know what I mean.
Well, did you guys listen to Sacred Symbols?
Nah.
Which one? Which part? Sorry.
They were talking about this in general. Think about it. Colin was reading the notice from the ESA about the cancellation and everything, and he kind of put how he said he was going through it and highlighting the things, because that's what he kind of likes to do. But he pointed out that they kind of listed it like it's disappointing to our fans, or to the fans, the publishers, and then I think they said like the industry or whatever, or the media, then the industry. And he's like, that's interesting that they kind of listed it. It used to be reversed. It used to be about the industry, then the media, and then like the fans, or don't know about the industry, then the fans and the media, or something. He's like, he just thought it was interesting that they kind of highlighted the fan part first.
Yeah.
As a talking about what we're talking about, how much it has changed on the focus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
you guys remember that weird year where it was just the media, but they broke it up and they gave people like media times, and they went to like hotels and go all over like LA to find where you need to be for your meeting.
No one missed that.
Right. I was like, we're at home. I'm like, that sounds miserable.
or how awkward the 2018 Sony press conference was while we had to wait while they switched rooms.
Yeah, that was odd, man.
Well, no, like, it made total sense if you were there. I'm like, this is a really cool experience for the 200 people in this room, but this live stream's weird.
Yeah, and I remember sitting home watching it. I'm like, the hell is going on? No, for real, I was just like, wow.
Yeah, when if and when E3 comes back next year, it'll be very different. I'm interested to see what it's going to look like. So, we got some cool gaming-related news. Ghost of Tsushima got a release date, and it's surprisingly a lot closer than I thought it would be. So, Ghost of Tsushima will be available on 4 on June 26th, 2020, which is less than a month after The Last of Us Part 2. So what do you guys think? Ghost of Tsushima, day 1? Day 6?
In my veins, day 1, man. I got that collector's edition on lockdown at my local EB Games. I am set.
Yeah, I mean, it's feudal Japan stuff, man. So I'm there. I'm all in on it.
Mm-hmm.
Day 1, whatever it turns out to be. I mean, I'm sure we'll discuss it.
Yep.
But,
we'll roll with it. But we'll still be there day 1.
Yeah, Ninja and Samurai. That's up EJ's alley.
Sam, you said something about wanting to be the Debbie Downer on this one?
I find myself in a very weird position.
Uh-oh.
Okay, so how do I put this? Am I the only one a little weirded out by the fact that Sony has broken one of their unspoken rules for the first time in their history, and they're putting 2 big games less than a month apart from each other?
I was thinking about that. I was thinking about it.
Just a little strange. Like, you couldn't even bump
slightly.
it. I don't know. I'm getting weird vibes.
I broke the
Debbie
game.
Downer is a strong phrase, to be clear.
But
When it
I didn't
pops
think
off,
about
I'm
it like
never
that.
gonna
Same,
get
I
it.
know you mentioned it before, and then I was like, I was mulling that over, and then again, Sacred Symbols kind of touched on that. I was like, this is, I think, what Sam was getting at, because
I haven't had a chance to listen. I definitely want to. Then.
okay, no, Colin kind of talked about what you said. He goes, it's just odd that they're doing that. He said it makes him feel like they don't have faith in the game.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to go quite that far, but it's interesting to hear that Colin said that.
I mean, he said he's excited for it. You know, he loves.
Sure. I mean, like the idea is they've said that they're not like necessarily sticking to historical accuracy per se, that they want it to be accurate, but like it's very stylized. It's very clearly meant to be like a Kurosawa type thing. Clear.
Right, which is exactly the vibe that I got from it. You know.
Yeah, exactly. You know, the cherry blossoms in the wind, snow-capped mountains. That's fine. That's
right.
No problem. I like.
And then a samurai going ninja, which is like, you know, all against the code. You know, that's just not. It's like
it's just
Bloods and Crips.
I would like to see at least a little bit more explanation of the gameplay. Because okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and tell you guys my crackpot theory I had a while ago. It's clearly not going to be the case. When this game was first announced, I was hoping it was going to be a stealth prequel, like literally a stealth prequel to the Infamous series, and that you would have like superpowers but themed after ninja ability. Like being able to turn into smoke and go under doors and stuff like that, or being able to summon dragon fire or stuff like that. I thought that would be interesting for it. They're clearly not going in that direction, so my question is, okay, how long is this game? Do we have any idea how big this game is?
That's a good question, because I'm curious to see if it's like level based.
We know it's open world. They've said it's open world.
It is
Tsushima Island, but we don't know how long the game is, and you know, it looks good. Sure, the gameplay, like the combat, looks fantastic from what we've seen, but I don't know. I'm just, like I said, Debbie Downer is a strong phrase. I just want to put it out there that I'm getting a couple of weird vibes.
Is this where, like, I'm just thinking, like, is this where maybe they might be going, like, almost how we've been watching a feudal Japanese Assassin's Creed, and maybe they're trying to do their own sort of way with that. Like, that's started kind of what I'm thinking, because I'm trying to think of gameplay varieties and types that they can use for this type of game, and really, like, the only thing that comes to my mind is how Odyssey plays, and that just kind of, like, to me, that's just the only fitting way that maybe Ghost of Tsushima could potentially play, but more actiony. Like, it's not as assassin-y, but more kind of actual hand-to-hand combat, like Sekiro sort of thing. That's just
I'm gonna tell you, if I load that game up and there's some like Dark Souls like combat in there, I'm gonna huck that collector's edition in the garbage so fast.
Jeez.
Sorry, Eric, what were you saying? I heard you say something.
No, I was kind of wondering if they're gonna maybe attempt to do something of a Bushido Blade type combat, which was the PS1 game.
Okay.
Yeah, where, you know, like, it's like damage happens to, like, you can attack certain body parts. You know that you know, if you swing and hit the arm, like, you know, stable stuff. It's like, you know, along with parrying, and like, I kind of wondered if it's going to be that kind of thing. Not Souls like, but obviously, but like, you know.
No, definitely not. But it
more
does seem like you're overwhelming odds, right? Like, that's the way.
Yeah.
How about we put it this way? Because you guys are raising a lot of good points. Why don't we have answers to some of these questions if the game's launching that soon? That's a good question.
Well, the other theory is it's a situation where they put the date out to get the pre-order thing going, but it's going to get pushed back and delayed.
And I'll be honest, especially because The Last of Us Part 2 is right next to it, I can definitely see that happen.
I can too, actually. I actually think that's going to happen.
One or the other, because I'm sorry. Small games are one thing. Some people put small games together. They'll put a small game next to a big game. That's fine. They don't put their AAA games, their big, high-quality productions, under a month away from each other.
Yeah, you know, that is said to be a thing that does happen. Like, you know, you start to put it out there, so it's like back in people's minds, and they start to get their pre-order and get the train rolling, and then you kind of, you know, you slide it back a little bit. So actually, I honestly would not be surprised.
I can totally see that, Eric. That's completely fair.
So yeah, because there's a lot more that needs to be kind of said. And I shouldn't say a lot more, because I'm also in the camp too of, give me a couple things so I kind of know where I'm going, but don't tell me.
Yeah.
Because I will eventually have a blackout. I don't want to know anything else. I don't need to see any more story trailers and all that stuff. But yeah, but I'd like to see some of the combat.
But I think we could stand to see more of the combat. We could stand to see more of the combat and exploration, how that functions. Because this is new IP, I think there's room to say more. And then, not
Yeah.
the story. You can stay away from the story. You don't have to say anything about the story trailers or anything. We know enough about that right now. But show more of the gameplay, maybe give some more answers in terms of game size or stuff like that, and I would feel a little better about it.
Yeah.
That's me.
Yep.
Yeah, definitely. We just need to see more, and I feel like they need to find a happy medium, because like with games like Spider-Man and Days Gone, I felt like, holy hell, we don't need 15 trailers. But on the flip side of that, Ghost of Tsushima, we've seen it twice. And I feel like I want to see maybe one more. Maybe like a 20-minute gameplay, because I want to know what that UI is going to look like. Or if there is a UI, or like, how is that going to work? Like, because we haven't seen any of that yet. And
Yeah.
I'm curious to what that's going to be. Like, is the UI going to be abhorrent? Is there going to be no UI? Is the health system literally, I got stabbed in the chest, so now I die? Like, what is it?
Yeah, I definitely don't want a Spider-Man scenario because I feel like they gave that whole game away.
No, definitely not.
I was like,
Yeah.
shut up, guys. Stop talking.
Yeah, no. Which is why I emphasize, hey, don't share more about the story. I know enough about Ghost of Tsushima's. Oh, that's perfectly fine.
Yeah, they got me on that portion, yes. I would like to kind of see how the combat gameplay kind of plays out, you know. I'm in. Other than that, I'm already there. You got a subject matter that I'm into. You know?
Yep, and that's how all it takes. So, in a little bit of interesting side news, Google Stadia got one hell of a pickup this past week with Shannon Studstill, who people might know from Sony Santa Monica. She worked there for roughly 20 years, I think, give or
20
take.
years, yeah.
Has worked on things from Twisted Metal Black, God of War series, Warhawk, Unfinished Swan, PlayStation All-Stars, God of War Ascension, Fat Princess Piece of Cake, The Order 1886, Everybody's Gone to the Rapture, and much, much, much more. As a senior director of product development from 2011-2016, and she was the executive producer on God of War 2018. She left Sony Santa Monica to join Google Stadia as a studio director for a new studio that Google has opened up. So, I'll say this. The first thing that strikes me as is Google does know that, like, you're supposed to get the studios, make the games, then release the product, right? That's the order this is supposed to go in, right? You don't sell the product, make the studios, then sell the game 4 years later. That's not how that's supposed to work, right? Like,
It does when you have Stadia, which is electric air.
oh my god. No. You know what kills me? I feel like Google walked into a boardroom with Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. I was like, hey guys, we want to join the console space. How should we do that? And Microsoft and Sony and Nintendo all looked at each other and went, you should totally release your game, release the soft product first, and then bring out the games. They love it when you do that. The consumers just eat that up. And Google's like, okay. And they went off and did that. This is... Well, it's sad because she was such an integral part of Sony Santa Monica. It's sad to see her go. It's sad to see so many senior people leaving Sony Santa Monica as a whole, because they've been on mass hiring to replace a bunch of senior roles that have left since God of War 2018. They already named a replacement, a very competent replacement. So I think Sony Santa Monica is going to be fine, but, like, I gotta ask, like, how could you, like, what is Google selling? Like, what are they doing? Because, like, to be able to go, be the executive producer on God of War 2018, and, like, God of War 2 basically feels like it'll be a slam dunk sequel, to walk away from that to do something for Google, like, how many pots of gold did Google have to hand over? Do you think there's something...
I was just gonna say, man, the amount of money they must be throwing at her must be huge.
Do you guys think that's what it is? Because there's no way that she's not a millionaire being an executive producer at Sony Santa Monica.
Right.
There's no way.
with that being said, I was thinking about this after we first talked about it. I don't think it's a money thing. I think it's a challenge thing.
I agree. I think this is 100%. I mean, don't get me wrong. She probably made bank.
Yeah.
She probably made
Oh, yeah,
bank.
she's getting paid.
But-
Yeah, they do. She got the bag.
She got the bag, no question. But I think this is definitely okay, I've been there for 20 years. Yumi Yang has been there for 19. She's going to take it over. Things will continue on exactly as they were. I need something new to do. I need a challenge.
Yeah, because when you're in that like that money bracket, you're like, that's not your issue anymore.
Right. The issue is,
unless you're just terrible with the money.
right. There's that, but we won't go there.
Right.
She's probably just wanting to do something very different. Like, okay, this platform is having problems out the yin yang. Let's see what I can do about it. Let's see if we can make an interesting game.
Yep. Let's make an interesting game. Let's see if we can make a name with this thing. Let's see what happens.
Exactly.
I mean, hell, it's still Google. At the end of the day, it's still Google.
Yeah.
It's not like an upstart somewhere. It's like you're okay there. So it's like, yeah, let's see what happens. It's like, why not? She's probably at home right now, quarantined. But hey,
Probably.
like the rest of us. But hey, start thinking about it. It's not so
Nick
much.
needs to be quarantined. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, for real, man. But I think it's one of those things like, they probably hit her up and say, look, we're doing this. You got, you see what it kind of is. This is the long game, and what do you think? And she's probably like, yeah, I'm going to come in and see if we can make some magic.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if it doesn't happen, who did it hurt? She has the resume to go somewhere else if she wants to.
It's the same thing as Reggie joining GameStop. If Reggie joins GameStop and GameStop still flops, everyone's going to realize GameStop was a failure and there was nothing Reggie could have done to do anything about it. But if some miracle happens and Reggie manages to pull GameStop out of that hole that they're in, he is going to be considered basically the term of an executive god.
Yeah.
And I think this is the same kind of situation, is that she wants a challenge. She's been at Sony Santa Monica for 20 years. She clearly has a high pedigree. And yeah, I'm going to try and make Google look good. Good luck.
Yeah.
But that's a challenge.
That's definitely a challenge. But, woman of her production caliber at this point, she clearly knows what she's doing.
Exactly.
And that's it. Yeah, it kind of applies to Reggie, too. Like, Reggie's at home, like, all right, yeah. I mean, I was with one of the biggest game companies ever, and I'm sitting at home now and kind of doing whatever. This sounds like a fun challenge.
Exactly. I'm not sure if it can be done, but if it can be done, Reggie's the one who can do it.
Right. So if you think about it, again, it's not a money thing because Reggie's on stacks.
His body has stacks. His body has money.
Right. So it's sort of like, hey, it's like Steve Ballmer. Steve's like, I'm out of Microsoft. What am I going to do? Hey, I'm going to buy a basketball team. 'Cause that seems fun to do.
Why not?
Man, I hope one day I can buy a basketball team money just because I can. That's what that's my goal. I want to get bored and buy an international sports team.
He's like, we're really bored. We're going to get Kawhi Leonard to leave championship team to come.
Man, we don't know. I don't want to talk about that. Why you gotta hurt my soul like that?
Dude, we're all hurting right now, man. I saw somebody on Twitter say, there's no sports, so let's just bet on the weather.
As a Toronto sports fan, I'm better off betting on the weather than most Toronto sports teams.
Yeah.
So
That's true. I
It's just
can't
crazy.
argue with
Like,
that one,
we
Nick.
have no sports. Like I said, Sports Center has nothing to talk about.
my dad texted me today and was like, "I'm watching bowling on ESPN. Send help."
Watching what?
Bowling.
Oh man.
Oh man. Oh, brutal.
So we're gonna talk on. We're gonna talk a little bit about Crunchy Crunch.
Cinnamon Crunch.
Captain Crunch. So, as everyone knows, in the video game industry, crunch has become a big topic over the past few years. And this isn't a new thing. This is something that's been talked about. The first time I remember reading about it was Uncharted 4. That was partially because of Jason Schreier's book that I learned so much about crunch and what it means and everything else. Crunch has been part of the history of video games, for worse or for better. Well, for worse, mainly. So a lot of people have taken umbrage with crunch and have either defended it or said it's fine or whatever. But a crunch is working excessive amounts of hours to meet a deadline. So I just want to get a couple of things or misinformation points that people like to spread. Crunch is not overtime. There's a big difference between working overtime and working crunch. You can work a little bit of overtime every week, and that's fine. That's not crunch. Crunch is basically like a few months or months on end consecutively of working what many would consider an unhealthy schedule. And like I said, what people consider an unhealthy schedule depends on where you live. Up here in Canada, a standard work week is 44 hours. I think in the United States, a standard work week is considered 40, correct?
Yeah.
So anything that's above that is overtime and everything else. And part of the reason why this is such a conversation amongst people is because crunch affects different job roles differently. Crunch, and the biggest assumption is, oh, they're just working overtime. They get paid for that. That's fine. The thing is if you're a contract worker, depending on your contract, overtime may not be paid for. Most contract workers don't get paid overtime. So if you work a 70-hour week, you're still paid for your 40 hours, and that's it. It sucks. I've worked contract work. I worked contract work for most of my late teens, and it's a cripplingly depressing and unstable job role to fill. But what you do when you're in contract work is you're constantly fighting to get that full-time job so you have that security and everything else. And there's contractors. Like when I was on contract work, I worked 60, 70 hours a week just to prove that I wanted to be part of the full-time staff, only to be let go once the project was completed. And that's a cripplingly hard part about contracting. And crunch within the video game industry is a huge part of what happens to contractors, not necessarily staff. I want to clarify that because a lot of people are construing this as all these people like Neil Druckmann or Cory Barlog are in here working overtime and not getting paid for it, or et cetera, et cetera. There's so many multifacets to this that it's a very difficult conversation. And the final point before I'm going to let Sam start this off is the biggest thing is that when this article came out about Naughty Dog, people immediately went to defense mode because they took it as an attack on the studio. This is an attack on the studio's work. The studio has put out some of the best video games that have ever been on video game consoles. No one is debating the quality of Naughty Dog's work. But this whole idea that if a studio doesn't crunch that Naughty Dog can't make games this good is asinine and idiotic. And it's stupid that people are equating crunch to quality because it doesn't have to be like that. No one is saying Naughty Dog makes bad games. They're saying working conditions at the studio are bad. Just because the working conditions at the studio are bad doesn't mean the games are bad. It means the conditions themselves are bad. So this isn't a slight against Naughty Dog. It isn't a slight against their games. It's not a slight against Sony. It's literally a slight against the working conditions that these people are put through in order to deliver these personal entertainment experiences to us. And I just wanted to preface all that because there's so many talking points that people have absolutely no idea what they're talking about. Because the amount of people I've seen arguing during quote-unquote work hours on social media, don't talk to me about crunch if you're posting 37 times on Twitter through an 8-hour period through the day. Okay? So, Sam, what did you think about this report about crunch over at Naughty Dog?
Okay, so we're talking specifically about Schreier's, nothing else, right? Just to be clear right now.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not talking about Cooper. We're going to get into Cooper after.
All right. Just want to be clear. I think that, first off, I mean, you and I have talked about this, Nick. We kind of knew this was coming for a while. Yeah, you and I have had some discussions about this in the past. Building on top of that, look, turnover happens. People leave. People get new jobs. People find things that they want to work on instead. People leave studios. This happens. It happens all the time. It happens a lot more than you think it does. But when 70% of your senior staff are no longer the same from one game to another, and that other game hasn't shipped yet, something's wrong, guys. Something's wrong. That kind of turnover rate is unheard of.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen anywhere. That doesn't happen anywhere else in the industry. That's way too quick, and it's way too much. And building on what you said, Nick, people don't need to take what Schreier said as an attack on Naughty Dog. Rather, it's meant to help them. When the report came out about Rockstar and everything that happened there, as a result of that, as a result of the public outcry, things have gotten better at Rockstar. Rockstar employees openly say things are a lot better now than they were. So, criticizing something, complaining about something when things are bad, when conditions are bad, is the only way it gets better. Does that mean things get taken out of context sometimes? Yeah, it absolutely does. But I don't think that's what's happening here. If junior staff are being brought on and senior staff literally can't be found to teach them in time, and that's making things take longer, that's not a sign of a healthy work culture, nor is it a sign of a great management team. A great studio is also efficient. You can take all the time you need, but people need to be taught how to do their jobs. They shouldn't be completely burned out after one game. I have no doubts The Last of Us Part 2 is going to be an incredible game. Don't get it twisted. I've got the Ellie Edition pre-order. I'm not a hypocrite, okay? I'm not going to pretend to be. But it's okay to enjoy something and simultaneously want better. I like Druckmann.
Absolutely.
I like Naughty Dog's past works. I like the Uncharted games, especially Uncharted 4. It's my favorite. And The Last of Us is one of my top 10 favorite games of all time. So I don't want to see that studio go away. I want to see them thrive. But unfortunately, it sounds like thriving means examining things that are going on there and figuring out what the problem is. That's my take right now as pertains to Schreier's report exclusive.
Yeah, Jared, Eric, you want to jump in on any of that, or?
I guess
Pleasure.
I was just gonna say, like, when I read that, the most concerning thing for me, that stood out for me was how 70% of that staff isn't the same as what it used to be, right? How it makes you wonder how much of the higher end, like the higher quality staff have left and have been filled with new talent, new people brought in to help fill in those gaps, but then those people haven't been taught the tools and what they actually need to use to properly create what they are envisioning for a game. Like, you're having older experienced, highly more experienced people leave that go to other studios, and those same people are being replaced by lesser experienced. So that, to me, calls into question a little bit of the quality and the potential of what will end up being this game. And if it truly is that bad of a situation there with Naughty Dog, with how many people have left, maybe that's why this whole crunch situation is an issue right now, or why they maybe have had to do that maybe for a while now, because there's so much new talent that they've been like, okay, there's all these messes that keep coming up and all these little problems and issues that we didn't think we're going to keep having, but we are having. So yeah, I think that's a really big concerning aspect for me for that studio in general. And, like, I know they're still going to put out a quality game. I'm still going to buy it. I'm still going to play the hell out of it. But I just want that senior leadership there, so those younger people can have those tools to create what that studio wants them to create, and not just kind of blame it on the younger people for not having the tools, sort of thing. If that makes any sense.
No, absolutely. And like, as someone who works on project roles and everything else, one of the most frustrating things that can happen on a project, like I'm working on one right now at my job, and we're understaffed right now because we had a couple of people leave, find new positions, and move on. So we're having to hire on people, or have people that don't typically work in those work roles work in those work roles. So we're constantly having to back check on people, do this, do that. Like, I'm doing someone else's job right now and someone's doing my job. I spend most of my day going back, making sure the guy who's doing my job now knows what he's doing so that it gets done correctly. And then I'm still trying to catch up on the job I'm covering. So
yeah, that extra time management, right?
Yeah, and absolutely, that plays a huge part in workplace relations and how you come together as a team. Because at the end of the game, whether you're producing a utilities project or if you're producing a video game, at the end of the day, there's a project, you have a deadline, you have your manpower, and you have to get it done somehow. And sometimes, like my job, for example, I've worked 60, 70-hour weeks, week on end. Last summer, I was at work 6 days a week, every week, getting stuff done, working from 5 o'clock in the morning till not getting home till 5, 6 o'clock at night. And people are discounting that. They're like, oh, well, if you don't like your job, then quit. Okay. What am I gonna quit my job to do? Like, my skill set is very specific to the industry I work in. And I can't just, like, I don't know if people think jobs grow on trees in this economy, but they don't. And, like, as a developer, like, if you join Naughty Dog, for a lot of people, that's, like, the dream gig, right? Like, that's a dream studio to work. That's, like, a heaven tier list to want to work for. So
it's a resume builder.
Yeah, it's a resume builder, absolutely. So you don't want to quit halfway through a project, because then when you go to your next job opening, they're like, oh, so you worked on The Last of Us Part 2 for a year and a half. Why? Versus staying through and shipping the game, which is why you see so many people leave studios post-launch of a game, is because the production may have been so hellish that they decided, I don't want to do this anymore. We have more people leave our projects after our last summer. That's when we lost 2 or 3 people, was because we had such a bad crunch push. And we had, like, I think my highest punched in hour clock was like 82 hours. And it was literally 12s, 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 a 14 hour, a 15 hour, 12. And, like, that affects people. And I hate how people are dehumanizing developers or using whataboutism to get out of talking about it. They're like, oh, well, if you feel so bad about game developers, why don't you care about the 5-year-old kid that makes your iPhone? I'm like, yeah, why don't we talk about that 5-year-old kid that makes your iPhone? Why don't we have a conversation about that? Because we have no problem writing off human life as long as they provide what we want from them. And at the root core of this is what pisses me off about this conversation, because I will wait an extra year for a game if people can have great living conditions and not hit a divorce or break up their family or anything else because they're working 78 hours a day to make a game that I'm going to have fun with on my free time. That's my problem with this. This is not worth ruining people's lives over. Video games are not worth. I love video games, but I am not comfortable with saying I'm okay with people ruining their lives to make this product for me. I'm still going to buy it because I think it's almost insulting if all these developers put 70, 80 hours, 90 hours into a work week and worked their tails off on this animation and everything else, and then I just don't buy it because I'm like, oh, you guys got treated like crap? I'm not going to buy the game now. That'll show them. Not really. It's just going to drop people out of jobs. But this conversation puts pressure on a company because of shareholders. This is bad PR. Shareholders react to bad PR. This will make them go, hey, so, like, what's really going on here? Because the cost of overtime and everything else, or not paying people overtime or burning out contractors and everything else, it has a cost, and no one wants to talk about this cost at all. Because, like, some of our favorite developers that we champion on social media, such as Cory Barlog as an example, all of these guys started out at the ground floor at some point. They were an animator, they were a story writer, they were someone's bottom of the barrel worker that progressed through the ranks and delivered us these experiences. But if we burn them out and make them hate their job or make them hate making games to force them out of the industry because the work conditions are so poor, we're going to lose great creative talent within the industry just because of this demand. And that's just so abhorrently bad to me. And, like, people are always like, keep the same energy. I did an 1.5-hour video with Sam and John about Rockstar for this very same thing. I have kept the same level through the same thing. If you are a studio and you are crunching, it is due to mismanagement and too much pressure, because I truly 100% believe that stockholders play a big part in why video game crunch happens, because they're like, every quarter we need to go up. Every quarter we need to go up. How do you go up every quarter when it takes 3 to 4 years to make a game? We need to have a really big up, and then we've got to service this game. Then we got to make sure it's got updates. We got to make sure that people are always buying into it. It's created this hunger mentality that a video game company always needs to be going up. Money always has to be going up. So you've got to figure out how to get games out faster, get it out the door. If it's buggy, we'll patch it later. It doesn't matter. It's all driving force. There's so many factors to this, and it's detrimental. But we're gonna side hop a little bit, because a former animator, I forget his last name, but Cooper, who everyone should
Actually, before we move on, can I jump on that for a sec?
Yeah.
Because this whole thing, like, I want to go back to the Jason article like for a minute and say, first and foremost, these kind of articles are important for the fact that it does shine some light on what's going on in the industry. And I know it's about Naughty Dog, and I know people kind of took umbrage with it as fans of the company and thought it was like sort of a slight, but the fact of the matter is crunch happens all throughout the industry, and for a lot of the reasons that you just highlighted, mainly to appease publisher and shareholder versus the developer, right? If you need any evidence of what game development, stress game development can be, just look at Cory Barlog over the last 5 years in like physical appearance. I know we point this out when we talk about presidents, but you look at how he looked 5 years. Look at Neil Druckmann, how much it's changed him, right?
Yep.
So, but it goes on everywhere. If you think back to when we had like, I'm going to use Gears as an example, because you remember we'd get like developer discs like in some of the like collector's editions, and they do like behind the scenes or whatever. And I remember watching different documentaries or whatever, and they would highlight the offices, and they show people, they have like little mats and cots that people could sleep on, and this fully stocked, kitchens and this and that with all the energy drinks and everything, because of why? Crunch. Because it takes a lot to produce games at a high level, at that high of a level. But it kind of happens, you just don't hear about it, in other studios, because it's not as high profile. You're going to get the high profile from the Rockstars, the Naughty Dogs, whatever, but if you start the high profile, it kind of shows a trickle down effect that there is an issue. And what I took from Jason's article was they almost need like that Rod Ferguson person that can come in and get this back on track, because it seems like Straley was sort of like that guy that was kind of looking out for the quality of life. And I'm not saying Neil doesn't, but it sounds like Neil's got a lot on his, trying to make sure this thing gets out. Now, what I'm kind of taking from it too is it's sort of a divided thing. You have people who burned out, but you have people that kind of dig the crunch. So what I took from that was you have people whose quality of life goals changed. We've probably been at Naughty Dog for a long time, and at one point it was okay for them, and at this point now, their quality of life, the importance of their quality of life changed for whatever it may be. They may have had kids, gotten married, whatever the case may be, right?
Yeah.
So the culture doesn't fit. It sounds to me like, let's just, again, staying in Jason's article, Naughty Dog is holdover of where the industry was, but they just haven't moved on from that yet.
Exactly.
Right?
I think you're 100% right. The fact that there's barely any producers there blows my mind.
Yes.
So Monica has a small army of people dedicated to, no, this goes here and that goes here. We keep this on track and that goes on track. One of my friend of mine, Yuha Benaya, I'm sorry, I just butchered your name, dude. I'm sorry. Remedy, he's a producer. And he'll tell you, being a producer doesn't mean you sit around all day eating donuts. It means you're desperately trying to keep people on track, because you do not.
You're a taskmaster, pretty much.
You don't want to see the glaze in someone's eyes when you tell them, "Oh, sorry, no one communicated with you. A week of your work is getting thrown out." Like, that ain't cool. I don't like it when 5 minutes of my work thrown out, let alone a week of it. Something I've been working on. Like, that's not okay. It's not that you're not going to eliminate crunch. That's the thing. You're not going to 100% get rid of it. It's impossible. But it shouldn't be happening at this rate. You cannot tell me that a 70% replacement after just one game is okay in your senior staff. It's not. It's unheard of.
Right, because so what it sounded like to me was that again that senior staff their priorities of life changed, and they just couldn't do it anymore, right? And I want to give a shout out to Optimus Code. You know, Jared's familiar with Optimus Code is a guy who worked in the gaming industry, and we were talking on Crossfire the other night, and he touched upon on this specifically. He said when he got into game development, that crunch was great at one point. He was like okay with it. It was like, you know, it's work. It's all I'm about it. But he said, but then what people don't realize is, and I think when I shared with you guys in the DM doing that, working in advertising, it's a similar type of thing, right?
Yeah.
It's using a part of your brain abnormally. You know, it's one thing to do labor. You can get out of Nick and attest labor. Yes, you get physically tired. You hit a wall. When you're up for a certain amount of hours doing something where you're focusing mentally on something, you hit a wall, but it's a different type of thing where to the point where you feel punch drunk. You don't know what's up, you don't know what's down. It's a different type of thing. So when you're doing that, and again, talking about what crunch is versus overtime, you know, like Code said, it goes from 3 months, and then, hey guys, guess what? We got more. And it goes to 6 months, and guess what? Now you're 9 months into doing that same thing over and over again, and then all of a sudden it's like, what is going on, right?
Yeah. If you have to crunch to meet the finish line, that's fine. That's one thing. But that's where producers come in, because there needs to actually be a finish line.
Right, and we'll talk about like the movie Grandma's Boy, and the lead female in that movie. She came in to do what? Get that game back on, because it was all over the place, right? So I can't say if this is true or not. I would be very surprised if in some way something doesn't change at Naughty, based off of what Jason is highlighting, because no one likes to get called out. As we're going to move into the next segment and talk about, no one likes to get called out, and I think they would have to see, yeah, there's something going on, but they're at a point. I think Jared today, maybe once this game ships, something changes.
I mean,
it sounds to me like they're trying to get done.
Eric, if you don't mind, I mean, the very fact that Neil Druckmann will be co-writing the Last of Us show, what does that tell you? He ain't working on a game after this.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's just like, screw you.
Well, you've heard Sam. Same thing. Like the game, like what are you gonna? I'm not touching the game. I'm going to do something.
Yeah,
Why? Because they were probably crunching to get control done. Listen, okay, I'm going to use a sports example, and Nick will probably get this. I remember at one point, LeBron James, I think it was after they won their first championship in Miami, and they asked him, so what are you going to do now? He said, nothing, basketball. He said, I'm giving basketball a break for a while, because up to that point, it was crunch. The dude was in the Olympics, and how many championships, and that toll is going to it's taking a toll on LeBron's body now. I mean, they did an average, he's played like 6 more seasons than the average player already with the same amount of time in, because he's not stopped from playoffs to championships to Olympics to everything else, right? So it's the same thing with a management staff. You know, you've gone from Uncharted, whatever, to this, to this, to this, and then eventually you just hit a wall. So it sounds like to me, like, again, those people that bounced, they're like, I can't do it anymore. We're out. Straley left, and then it's like Neil is just like, I got to do whatever I got to do to get this thing over the finish line. And I would not be surprised if whether he, like you said, he's walking away to go do the show, or he's like, I'm done completely, or hey, we can no longer have this and something needs to change, and it needs to start with producers. Like you said, Sam, producers are schedulers. That's what Rod is going to go do. Rod is going to go and say, here's your role, here's your role, here's your This is where you need to be by this point in the week. This is where you need to be in this point in the week. We're going to get back together. If you're not on this task, then we got to fix that.
Exactly. We said this a couple of weeks ago, and I'll say it again. The fact that Rod was called in on the Diablo franchise is very, very as to what the hell is going on at Blizzard.
Right.
Yeah.
You may not like it. You can complain about it all day, and that's fine. It's your prerogative. But at the end of the day, Rod gets games shipped that otherwise just don't exist.
Yeah.
He forces something to actually happen, and sometimes got to have that push person giving you the push out the door.
Yeah.
And again, and I cannot emphasize enough, we say these things because we love Naughty Dog, because I want them to continue giving these kinds of incredible games. But one of the developers who's currently working at Naughty Dog told Schreier, I almost wish this game would be a failure, so we'd be forced to change.
Right.
That's not a healthy thing to say. That does not come from a place of optimism or loving what you do, and that's concerning. After this, please cool down. If anyone, in the unlikely event, any of them, just cool it a little bit. Figure some things out, because this isn't sustainable term.
Yeah, and then because I know like we come here for gaming, for the most part, so that's why the subject is what it is. But if I can touch on kind of where Nick was going with some of the things and the things that annoy, I'm somewhere in between. Like I know there's people out there who are standing, again, whether they're fans or whether they just want something to do on social media, so they're out there with, defense of Naughty Dog and the whole I don't give a about the crunch, just give me the game, right? That's a little cold. I get that. The other side of that coin is you got people out there who are white knighting for the developers and this and this and that. And I'm like, if you're that compassionate, there's a lot of industries where this happens to people, So I do understand that whole thing where it's like, because I thought in my head, I laughed at myself. I was kind of like, if you're this busy white knighting, I hope you're on your couch butt naked, because there's a lot of people that bought into your out who don't get weekends, who don't get, the time off and anything like that, and it's probably even development. The other night on Crossfire, I just shared from a teacher perspective, because that's what I did. I watched my wife, and I watch other teachers in school, and I said, their job isn't easy either, but, we value entertainment more than almost anything in this country, or in general, as human beings. Entertainment is usually one of the things, family, everything else, that we value, because life can be a bitch. So we want the escapes, whether it's movies, video games, whatever it may be, right? So sports, whatever. So we usually put those things like on a pedestal. So I understand why we feel these ways that we do, but there's a lot of things that people have quality of life issues in their daily jobs. Look at teachers, and I say, most people say, well, it's cool, you guys get summers off, and it's like, they need those summers off. And truth be told, a lot of them work because they don't make the money that covers the whole thing. And it's not just those few hours that they're in school. Teachers now have to deal with a lot of different behavior issues, because kids today are wired different in a lot of ways, and the system is kind of throwing all types of kids in. So you have all types of behavior issues that a teacher has to be at any moment, a therapist, a behaviorist, the whole nine, the whole gamut. And then they get to come home planning and grades and answer emails and, all those different things, right? So it's like, compassion for people is great. It's great to be compassionate for what's going on, but this whole, console war energy thing is just burnout on both ends. It's like, I'm watching guys who are still bringing it up today, people that we know, and I'm like, you're still bringing this up. Why? Are you doing this to annoy a fan base and to keep stoking the fire, or do you generally care? And vice versa. And you got people that are, I don't give a damn. They can go to hell and they can burn in the fire as long as I get, The Last of Us 2. And I'm like, well, that's a fucking take.
I'll tell you this. I mean, that one, it ain't gonna last long, because after that, you ain't gonna get another game.
But so I'm just like, come on, people. It's like, just for a day, let's just stop and actually think about what we're talking about here.
Well, social media as usual.
Yeah.
You wish for a lot, Eric.
I know, yeah.
It doesn't allow people to actually care about something.
Yeah.
Well,
unless it's happening directly to them or somebody.
Well, and see, this is my problem in general, because, like, the reason I talk so much about it is because I'm a big proprietor of that. A lot of us are mistreated in the workplace. I've been in the workforce for only 12 years, and I've only had a good job the past year and a half. I've had almost every job I had broke labor laws, manipulated me, treated me like garbage, pushed me to limits that I didn't need to be pushed to, and everything else. And to me, if I could change even one person's scenario by speaking out about it, I would. I've been a huge advocate for teachers. We're going through a teacher thing up here right now because our teachers are getting bastardized by the government because they need more support because class sizes are ballooning to 36 kids. And the government's like, yeah, but teachers up here make $86,000 a year on average, so they could just deal with that on their pile of money. And it's like,
also,
no.
So you're turning to the U.S. then, because U.S. has been that way for
20 it's bad. It's bad over there right now, man.
It's getting ugly. And see, the thing is like, I hate the thing of like, I'm not talking what you're talking about, Eric, because I agree with you, because there's people that all of a sudden don't care about anything, all of a sudden care about this one specific thing. I get that. But for me, it's like, when do we start to care? We need to start caring at some point, because one of the things that absolutely breaks my heart on social media, and even in the world around me on a regular basis, is how little we care. Even this COVID-19 virus has absolutely shown how little people generally care about those around them. We've got people stockpiling necessary supplies. Like, I saw Steven Spohn, if you follow him on Twitter, he's physically disabled and has a lot of health problems, has a full-time nurse. So when he has his breathing apparatus changed out, his nurse needs to use sanitizer. Well, guess what? His nurse ran out of sanitizer. For people like him, that's a very necessary step to stave off just normal infection. But no, we've got some dude in the States that stockpiled 18,000 units of hand sanitizer, and you got news sites treating him like he's a hero because he hustled the system. No. That's my problem as a whole, is because people go, well, if you care about game developers, why don't you care about this? I do care about that. I talk about that shit all the time. I don't buy Nike shoes because they have abhorrent fucking slave work making those shoes. I don't buy iPhones. I buy an Android phone. It's the same difference, same people. Doesn't matter. It's all out of Foxconn. It's all it all comes out. The thing is like, if you wanted to push it to a T, don't buy a video game console. They're made in Foxconn too.
Right. You know what it is? Have you guys seen that meme where it like well, it culminates in this guy who's like ages, the dark ages. He's carrying a bundle of sticks. He's like, we should improve society somewhat, and then some yuppie comes out of a bush and says, but you participate in society. How curious. I am very smart. It's like, yes, technically speaking, you want to get real, under capitalism, there's no such thing as ethical consumption. Mm-hmm. Happy? We own clothes that you can't be 100% sure. We own shoes, we own phones, one way or another. It doesn't matter whether you get the good ones or the ones with the Apple logo on them. End of the day, I'm sorry. End of the day, like, you don't know how that was done. I have to give a shout out to an excellent journalist in the field, Rebecca Valentine, who does a report annually on ethical sourcing, which basically is her marching up to different companies like Microsoft, Sony, Nintendo, and saying, hey, can you guarantee your consoles weren't made with slave labor or with blood diamonds or things like that? And some of them can answer it, some of them can't. Go look it up if you're interested. It's a very interesting report. But the point is, like, yeah, those questions can be asked, but at the end of the day, you do have to participate in it. At the same time, you cannot let that invalidate pushing back on things that can be changed. I can't control who is working in a Chinese factory halfway around. I can't. But we have direct evidence that if you raise your voice and you shine a light on things that aren't okay, hey, Rockstar, even if someone left during the middle of a production, put their name in the credits. Or hire that contractor and make them full-time. We can make changes. Just make sure you understand what you're pushing for. I'm not pushing for this because I don't care, because the blue box is worse or whatever, it's stupid. It's because I do care.
Well, and that's the same thing. Like, to bring up Glorious War's point in the chat, he would rather spend his time fighting for a livable minimum wage and paid sick leave. I would fight for that, but you know what? My country already did that because we fought for that 20 goddamn years ago. I don't have to fight for that. I think a lot of these crunch issues in the States would be eliminated if you guys fixed your labor laws. Because, like, I looked at, like, when I was looking at moving to the States, because I got offered a contract, once again, contract work, to work in the States, and it was a huge sum of money for me to move down there. I was going to be making six figures, living in South Carolina. It was going to be peachy. But you know what? I looked into your labor laws, and I did a fast turn because I basically had no human rights.
Yeah.
Don't come to Florida. It's a right to work state, which means you have no rights.
South Carolina's the same thing, right to work. Which basically means, like, if you're working at a retail store, like GameStop or Kroger, Walmart, whatever, like, that you can be fired at any time for any reason. Doesn't matter.
They make it sound like really like glamorous by saying right to work state. Oh, that means that's great. No, it doesn't benefit you. It benefits the employer.
It means when you work, we're right.
Yeah,
Right,
like
right.
at least you guys, if you guys have a bad employee, you can fire them. In order for me to get rid of an employee, it took me and my boss 4 months, 3 write-ups, and 2 suspensions in order to fire him because of our labor laws. It might seem a little extreme, but you know what? There was times where I was asked to do unsafe things while I worked in the chemical manufacturing field. I told my supervisor no. He threatened to suspend me. He suspended me. I went to my labor rep, and I got $2,000 back in fees and everything else because they violated a labor code and they had to pay me out for it. And I think labor law adjustment would do a lot to help North American studios, particularly because if you notice, all these dirty crunch stories only ever really come out of the US, with the exception of CD Projekt Red. But even then, their admitted crunch is way different than what the US crunch is. And there's
And they are required by Polish law to pay big bucks in overtime.
Yeah, in Polish law, even if you're on salary, so say in your contract you're supposed to make $50,000 a year. If you exceed your 40-hour work week, they have to pay you time and a half or double time on top of that, regardless of your salary. So
That
that's
doesn't make it all right 100%, but it is something.
well, you know, a lot of contractors would probably feel better if they were working 80-hour weeks and getting paid for 80-hour weeks. And, like, there's a huge amount of issues. And it's more like this whole thing with Naughty Dog is just a symptom of the bigger problem of worker rights and that people don't have the security they need. Because, like, I'd love to live in a world where people were like, oh, well, you just quit your job at Naughty Dog and go get another one. I would love to live in a world where if my job treats me like garbage, I could just leave. It took me 6 months to find a new job when I was working at the chemical factory. Like, when I decided I've had enough, I still had to work another 6 months before I got an interview within my field. And that's the reality of it. Like, these jobs don't just grow on trees. You can't just walk out of Naughty Dog and then walk into Rockstar and be like, sir, can you hire me, please? I would like to do this job role. That's not how this works. And for me, it's just, I want people to be treated well. I love the developers that make my games. I want them to be able to lead healthy lives. I want them to be able to create into their 60s, their 70s. How many game devs do we have that create late into their lives? Most of these guys retire right in their 30s, 40s. Because they're like, I'm done. Like, when everyone was going, oh, I bet Dan Houser's going to start up another studio. No, he's probably going to sleep for 5 years on a pile of $1 million bills.
Probably.
And that's just the whole thing. And, like, it costs nothing to talk about this and be like, this is wrong, this needs to get better. It's not going to hurt Last of Us' sales. It's not going to hurt Naughty Dog as a whole. Talking about this does not do damage. People aren't boycotting this. I haven't even seen anyone say that. Everyone's like, yeah, I'm going to buy this game.
Because anyone who says they're boycotting it is a nitwit, clearly.
Yes.
Well, no. Like, in the history of boycotting things that have been boycotted in the past 6 months. Pokemon Sword and Shield. Sold 15 million copies. Good boycott, guys. Borderlands 3. 5 million copies. Whew. Great boycott, guys.
Pokemon Sword and Shield. Great boycott.
Yeah, like, literally. In the history of people putting their foot down and being whiny on social media, how often has these boycotts actually worked? We've actually seen more projects failed from people saying they'd support that and not actually buying it than we have boycotts actually working.
That's a good point, actually.
Wild reverse psychology stuff.
Yeah, like, don't you remember when Lawbreakers was announced and everyone was like, yeah, this multiplayer PlayStation exclusive, finally, they're listening to us. I can't wait to play this. Game's dead in 3 months. I'm like, what? and that's just how it works, is like, there is nobody, like, I'm not gonna, like, I want conditions at Naughty Dog to be better, but I'm not gonna boycott the game. That's stupid. It's not gonna do anything. I'm not,
No,
like, Go ahead, Eric.
Right? No, I was just gonna. I wanted to highlight something, say, because I thought about this the other day myself. I was like, Sakurai-san was actually sitting at his desk with an IV, continuing to crunch on Smash Ultimate to get it out.
That ain't okay. Like,
Right.
Dude, stop. That,
Right.
No, that's clearly not okay. Time
Yeah.
out. And it is worth pointing out, to be 100% fair, Sakurai is a contractor with Nintendo. He actually doesn't. He doesn't work directly for Nintendo. He works with them. Nintendo, in my understanding, is one of the few Japanese companies that actually does a good job promoting work-life balance. From what I've heard, Reggie and others and Miyamoto have done some things. That's clearly not the standard.
No, but I'm saying, but it also sounds like he's wired that way.
Yeah, I was gonna say that was.
You know?
And honestly, that's when you need a producer. That's when you need someone to say, "No, dude, stop. You're not working at your desk. If you look like you should be in a hospital bed or an ICU, you're not working at your desk."
Right. Go take a damn vacation.
Or highlight it in. You almost have to ignore like some of that social media part of it because it is true. Like no one batted an eye. You know, to be like, oh well, I'm not gonna.
Not bad in my eyes, but
I mean, I did. I saw it. I was like, oh, crap, that's crazy. But like we were just saying, nobody said, you know what? I'm gonna show Nintendo that ain't cool. I'm not picking up that Smash. They were like, hey, Sakurai, thanks for your dedication. You know, I'm picking up my Smash on Friday.
Well, the thing is, was like the Sakurai thing is different because it's not a studio crunching. This is a man who just won't stop, even for the betterment of his own health. And like,
someone drag him away, please.
Yeah, like, and that's the thing too is like if a story came out and they said Druckmann's working 80-hour weeks, I'd believe that 100%. That dude is wired like that. Like these guys are perfectionists and are wired like this, but not everybody in the studio is wired like that. That's the difference. Is like, yes, for some of these people, this is a passion project and they want to pour those kind of hours into it. And I'm not saying restrict those people. Just make sure they're, you know, given the opportunity to also take breaks when they need to. And they also get breathing room. Because, like, one of my biggest concerns with Naughty Dog, not even necessarily the studio, but with Druckmann himself, is like he didn't really seem to get a break between Uncharted 4 and The Last of Us Part 2. Like, it feels like he just, like, finished Uncharted 4, slumped onto a couch for 48 hours, rolled over, and was like, I have the script for The Last of Us Part 2. Like, the man's a legend in the way he's able to turn out such amazing products, but I worry for his health because, man, that dude, does he even smile anymore? He looks so dead on the inside now. But, like, it's the same thing with Sakurai. Like, Sakurai was told he needed to take a month off during development of Smash Brothers. And I remember writing this article, and I called him crazy in the article, too, because I was like, this guy's supposed to be in a hospital on bed rest, and this dude's sitting there with an IV bag at his desk. And, like, Nintendo's like, can you go home? And he's like, no, I'll just work from home. And they're like, well, at least if he's in the office, if he passes out, we can find him. And that was, like, the end all of that whole thing. And, like, for some of these guys, it's their life. It's what drives them. That's why you see some of these guys that have been developing games for so long, and they'll do anything they can to stay in games development. You can look at someone like Swery, for an example, who tooth and nail fights to stay in the industry as much as he can. And then you've seen guys like Cliff Bleszinski, who crunched through Epic for Gears, tried to run his own studio, found out how hard that would be, and absolutely had it fall apart in his lap. And he took care of his employees, and he left the industry. And as much as people like to dunk on Cliffy B and everything, I think it's a loss in the games industry that he's not here anymore. And I don't know, it's just, it makes me sad to see developers exit. Like Drew Murray leaving those years ago after Sunset Overdrive was sad to me because he's such a creative talent. To see him come back into the industry is great. Especially since when he left, he said, I'm never working in games again. And to see him come back again is great. It's just, I don't know, I want people to work the hours they want to work. If you're super passionate about what you do and you don't mind working 70 hours, then all the more to you, as long as you're not being taken advantage of. And if you want to work 40 hours a week as a contractor, then work 40 hours a week as a contractor. I think we just need to be realistic with it. And to the point of realism that games are reaching, I don't think this AAA game in 3 years thing is healthy anymore. I think they need more time. And that pretty much sums it up, really.
Yeah, I think
We-
that's basically all there is.
We're kind of running late. I don't want to run it much longer. We could get into the whole Cooper thing, but honestly,
That's a whole other discussion, though. I think.
well, the whole Cooper thing is just messy, and it's
Yeah.
just evolved into people in the industry flinging mud at each other. And I don't particularly want to try to throw my opinion into that arena.
Yeah, there's a lot of points to touch on in that aspect, on many different sides, so it's complicated.
I might do a video on it later this week. I might pull one of these guys to talk about it, but it's a really convoluted thing going on right now, and I just don't think there's enough information out there where I could make a stance where it feels informationally backed that wouldn't come across like a hot take. And
That's fair.
I think Jason Schreier's piece was well done. It had multiple sources and everything else, and I think that's the talking point people should be going off of, not necessarily Cooper. But I digress, because we all have our own books to sell. Apparently, it's the new phrase I keep hearing this weekend. So we'll do outros here. Sam, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at Samuel Tolbert. That's Tolbert. And since you're going to be stuck inside, you need something to read. So you can find everything I do on Windows Central, Android, and I'm covering Xbox, Nintendo, and PlayStation 5 whenever Sony decides to share more. We'll still be waiting in months. But...
Absolutely. Jared?
Well, people can find me on Twitter at RageVirus_X, and as well at lordsofgaming.net for all my writing fun.
Yes, sir. And Eric?
I'll be here.
Fair enough.
All right, we like it.
Yeah, I'll be social distancing for the next couple of weeks. But seriously, you can find me on Twitter, EC Jackson with an X, and hopefully banging out some backlog and doing photography and all that fun, good stuff. Yeah, taking some of this time, just to kind of catch up on other stuff that you don't usually get to catch up on.
Sure.
Absolutely. And I'm Nicholas Downey. I am the editor-in-chief of lordsofgaming.net. You can find all my writing there. I've been kind of on a sabbatical since the whole E3 cancellation, but I'm back into it this week.
Yeah.
I've got some big pieces planned for this week, and if my work gets canceled because of COVID-19, you will be seeing a lot more content from me because I will be at home 24/7. Because I was just reading on Twitter, apparently our province is completely shutting down tomorrow. Government sanctioned. Is that they're closing everything except for grocery stores, gas stations, and pharmacies. So I don't even know if I have to go to work tomorrow. Woohoo!
Yeah, New York City just announced the same thing, and the state of Washington sounds like they're restricting the same thing too, as of tomorrow.
Yeah, well, we'll wait and see. I'll wait till official word. I'll go into work tomorrow. If they're like, nope, you don't have to work today, I'll just click my heels and go, woo! Week before Doom, I'm off work. You know, there's something so messed up with the fact that I'm like, man, I hope I get put on 2-week quarantine so I can play Doom Eternal. There's something so inherently wrong about that statement, but at the same time, I just don't like dealing with people. But it is what it is. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Stay safe, stay smart, and wash your damn hands because it's getting scary out there. Or so I'm told.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure you stockpile all that toilet paper for your bunghole.